I'm Ann Bjornson, Senior Vice President of Human Resources at Leidos and Chair of WashingtonExec's HR Council. I want to welcome you to the latest in our video series, Talent at the Core. In today's episode, Talent Strategies in the Cleared Space, we've invited 3 members of our HR Council to share their perspectives on attracting and retaining talent as workforce market dynamics continue to evolve for cleared professionals. On our panel today are Tom Painter, Senior Vice President, Human Capital at System High Corporation; Melanie Anderson, Vice President, Human Resources, Huntington Ingalls Industries; and Chris Gros, Vice President, Talent at NT Concepts. Thank you all for joining today. Tom, let's start with you. How would you say competition has changed in recent years for talent in the cleared space?
Thanks, Joanne. And let me preface my comments by indicating that I'll speak to the broader cleared community. The nuances between TSSCI and CI Poly and full scope would take a much longer period of time. So I'll stay focused on the larger cleared workforce. And I'll highlight quickly 2 dynamics that I see going on. One is really an amplification on an existing age-old talent dynamic that we've dealt with in the cleared community, and one is an emerging requirement. So the amplification requirement is really what inflation is doing to drive pressures on total compensation. We all work hard to make sure our base pay, our incentive compensation, and our benefits remain competitive. But essentially, the high inflation rate that we've been dealing with drives actions much faster than what we typically do with more annual based programs, annual salary reviews, the annual benefit reviews. And so there is a time clicking dynamic to the fact that the market is moving very quickly on some of those economic pressures on total compensation. The other factor that I see out there right now is more of an emerging requirement, and it's what I refer to as a post-COVID dynamic, where many people have really started to reevaluate their careers, their lives. And so even though we have for years been blessed to have so many people want to be a part of the national security mission that most of us directly support, we are finding more employees who are willing to look at other opportunities outside the national security environment. So we're working hard to make sure that we do address those kinds of needs as best we can. But the work we do is for classified missions. And so the vast majority of our workforce is working inside the wire at the government agencies we support. We're somewhat limited in the amount of flexibility that we can provide to them to have workplace flexibilities. And we just have to be as creative as possible. Of course, the bad guys would like nothing more for us to go too far in opening up portals and getting them access to information we don't want them to have access to. So those are the trends that I'm seeing out there right now, Joanne. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Melanie, what advantages and disadvantages would you say you have in competing for talent in this space?
75% of our workforce holds a clearance. We are schooled in being able to support a workforce that's cleared in the special needs of this organization. But an advantage for us and for other companies really relates to having great customer relationships, prime contracts, and unique mission-focused work to be able to attract talent. That's really where you get the unique advantage. And many proud Americans want to support the national security mission, as Tom mentioned. And we do enjoy certain advantages of transitioning military populations and folks that have left service and want to come back in and continue to support. So those are certain advantages there. I'd say from a disadvantage perspective, similar to what Tom mentioned, we don't have as much flexibility as commercial markets can offer. And we really do fish from a more limited pool of cleared talent, and particularly the higher level of clearance, the more difficult it is to secure that talent. And Occasionally we find ourselves sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul and poaching from one another to to secure that talent for our customer, which actually kind of drives up cost. But the work that we perform is unique and distinguished. We are able to attract, but often not at the total comp of some commercial companies and the flexibility of the commercial company. You certainly can't do what we do from home, which sometimes impacts us. And also, subject to contracts and labor rates, again, we have less flexibility than maybe some commercial markets as well.
Chris, what are some new tactics that you've been employing to attract and retain cleared talent?
We've tried, just like our peers in the industry, have tried a whole host of things over the last 5 years. Where we really found we're gaining ground in the last couple of years, really post-COVID, is in two areas. And one has already been mentioned, and it's going to continue to be mentioned, and that's workplace flexibility, which I'll talk about in a second. And both of these require partnering with our government client. And the next is being able to substitute experience for education. And those are important in two ways. One, the flexibility piece means more than just remote or on-site all the time. It is true flexibility that employees are looking for nowadays. And the government understands that, so our clients understand that. And so it really is about focusing on the ability for people to either work on site a few days a week or off site a few days a week, or they have flexible hours. But at the end of the day, it really is just flexibility, as we're finding, as opposed to the old days where employees would go sit on client site for 40 hours a week during set periods of time. So we're finding that by partnering with our government clients, that's helping us stand out a little bit more to give some people a little more flexibility. 90% of our folks are cleared, and so a lot of them are used to working inside of SCIFs or on client sites. So just a little bit of flexibility is helping out. And the next is, as I mentioned earlier, was substituting experience for education. It's a highly competitive market. We all know that. And one of the things we found that if we go out and we find the right sort of folks who already have clearances and the ability to learn, we'll bring them in, train them, and get them on client site. So again, that requires partnering with our government clients to allow us to do that, which we have done. And we found success really focusing on folks getting out of the military or populations that are already cleared, bringing them in, getting them trained up, and then moving them over to client site. One of the things we like to say is we can, you can teach skills, but you hire character. And so that's what we do. We hire character, and then we teach them the right skills.
Great. Thanks, Chris. And finally, for all of you, I'd like to ask, what do you think it would take to move the needle on alleviating the challenges that we're seeing in attracting and retaining talent in the cleared space? Tom, what are your thoughts?
Thanks, Joanne. So I'll highlight 4 areas. We work very hard to infuse our culture at the government location. So we are very proud of what we believe characterizes the uniqueness of our organization. But it's hard to infuse that at the customer site. They're working at the government location, working predominantly with government people, oftentimes other government contractors. And so we have increased the visits out to the locations. With the post-pandemic period that we're in, we're starting to get greater access to the sites to go visit our employees, trying to drive more team events, putting priority on things like a newsletter, just to keep people connected back to the mothership. The other thing that we really focus on is highlighting career opportunities across the organization. We can get stovepipe like any other organization. So we work hard to make sure employees know what the different missions are of the government customers we support. What are the skills required? How do they get there? Who are the people to reach out to? We just hosted a mobility event earlier this week to make sure employees are educated on the different career opportunities. Give us a chance before they send their resume out to anybody else. We obviously place a great value on non-financial recognition. As Melanie pointed out, doing these things can be very costly. We have to remain cost competitive to win contracts. So you can't do everything. You have to prioritize. So we're really putting a lot of emphasis on peer-to-peer recognition as a means of furthering that sense of value proposition for each employee. And then finally, we're increasing our community engagement activities. We're going to be participating in Wreaths Across America next weekend, at locations across the country, our offices across the country, trying to find ways of making sure employees have a way to feel a subset of the larger communities that they live in.
Thanks. Melanie, your thoughts?
So I'm kind of looking at this as a national imperative to ensure we can attract talent to this space. It starts first and foremost with our customers, working with our customers on the war for talent. We're in 45 states, 321 locations overall in 11 countries, right? Every mission is unique. Every customer wants to ensure they have the talent to execute their mission. And, we're best positioned there to talk about the sort of unique things each location and program needs to attract and retain talent. It's really imperative that our program managers, engage with customers, help them understand the struggles and really build the plans at a local level. But just in a national level, we have to make this defense space very interesting to, early career talent. And if you look at some of the actions of, commercial companies with perhaps deeper pockets, they're working very early, K through 12 and high school and college to, create some stickiness and pull. And we have perhaps in some respects less ability to do that the same way that they do, but it's really important that we're attracting young folks to this space, to want to, the best and the brightest to want to be doing work in support of our nation. And I think that's sort of another thing that is important for us to focus on, including just building talent pipelines that we never thought about and getting really creative. And to Chris's point, thinking differently about the work that needs to be done and the talent that's available to do it.
And Chris, your thoughts?
My thoughts are, I think, a combination of what Tom and Melanie just said. So I've been saying this for a few years. I read an article in the Harvard Business Review a few years ago, and it really talks about just getting back to basics on what really attracts employees and what all employees want. And where that focus is on career, community, and cause. And we can throw a fourth C in there as compensation as well. But compensation is sort of table stakes in this market, in this game. But really, on the career side of things, employees want to know, and that's the question we get asked a lot, is what's my growth look like in this organization? Where can I go? So it's growth both inside the company, and we talk about helping people grow outside the company down the road if they want. But career growth is really something important to all employees, and that's how to attract them. The other is a sense of community. It's both a community within the company and within the client site, and it's a delicate balance, we all know, in government contracting, to make sure that we can do everything we can, everything possible to ensure employees feel connected to the company as well as the client. And then that third piece is cause. And for us, that cause is, again, we're in government contracting. That mission is national security. That's our company mission. We're focused on helping our clients in all areas of national security. And so that's an attraction for employees, as well as their client-specific mission. So those who are on client site need to feel like they're part of that mission and part of that cause inside the organization they're supporting. So to me, it really is about getting back to I say the basics, but it really is getting back to the basics and finding out what employees want and making sure that we can deliver that for them.
Well, this concludes our latest episode of the Talent at the Core series. Again, I want to thank Tom Painter, Melanie Anderson, and Chris Gros for sharing your perspective today. It was very insightful. Thank you so much.